We have this new microphone because your pastor is freakishly tall, so it got a little longer. Jesus says to Simon today, "Put out into deep water and lower your nets for a catch." Put out into deep water and lower your nets for a catch. And those words that Jesus says to Simon are really the words that Jesus addresses to all of his disciples. Everybody that follows Jesus, he has some kind of a mission, right? He has something that he wants to say. And so he says to each one of us, to you and to me, he says, "Put out into deep waters and lower your nets for a catch." So he's asking us to do something that takes courage, right? He's asking us to face sort of those deep, dark waters that, we don't know what's swimming underneath, but that's what he's asking us to do. I think those deep waters can look a little different for every person. There's many things that they could be, but those deep waters sometimes are maybe Jesus is calling us to a new phase in our life, right? Maybe it's a new place that we're meant to go. Maybe it's a new home, a new workplace, something else. Maybe Jesus' call is for us to maybe walk with another person, right? To invest in a new friendship, and that can be kind of scary sometimes because you don't know, what that friendship is going to be like. You don't know if you're going to try to share your faith with that person, what their response might be. There's a lot of unknowns with that as well. Maybe the deepest dark waters that we experience might even be the dark waters of our own soul, right? Our own self, when we're faced with, our own weaknesses, or maybe the things that we're ashamed of, and we don't really want to go there, right? It's like that's sort of something that I'd rather not think about. It's something I'd rather not touch. And yet Jesus sometimes he invites us. He invites us to that, to cast our nets into those deep waters. And maybe a final example too, since we're celebrating in the Church National Marriage Week, marriage can be like those deep waters, right? You cast your net into them. You don't know what your life is going to be like with this person, but you are called by Jesus to make that act of faith and to enter into this vocation, into this calling, because Jesus has some kind of a mission for your life. All of those things, all of these unknowns, it's like we're entering into the realm of chaos, into the realm of things that we can't control, and that's where Jesus wants us to go. By contrast, the world would like to offer us a very shallow life. The world would like to offer us a very comfortable life. Think about the way that the internet has progressed, how we can have everything at our fingertips, everything that we could ever possibly need. And we can start going from article to article and video to video, and hours pass, and we never really get to anything of substance. It's all sort of shallow. And I preach to myself on this as well. But we've got this danger of using the internet as it sort of becomes an insulation against real life, right? We can sort of just dwell there because we can kind of control what we see, and we don't have to worry about it too much. And of course, it never really makes us happy, but we can get caught up in that, right? We get caught up in any of these things that the world offers us. It's just a comfortable life, just something that's easy to control, easy to manage, something that's shallow, that's not going to challenge me too much. And sometimes the world is all too eager to offer us that possibility if that's what we're looking for. But what did Pope Benedict XVI once say? He said, "You were not made for comfort, you were made for greatness." You were not made for comfort, you were made for something far more than that. So even if the world can offer us comfort, Jesus is here to offer us something much deeper, something much greater. Because Jesus wants to invite us into this life that it's like full of energy, it's full of life. It's really a thrilling life, to live a life of holiness, to dedicate your life to Christ Jesus. That's what we see in the lives of the saints. In the lives of the saints and martyrs, they lived their life completely for Christ. It possessed them, right? It made them on fire for life because they had something worth living for, compared to everything else in the world, right? Christ was the only thing that mattered. Everything else was just like this rubbish, right? It didn't matter at all. They had this driving purpose in their life. Some of them even shed their blood for that purpose because it was so important. And that's the kind of motivation, that's the kind of life that Christ wants to give to us. He wants to call us into those deep waters, right? But we don't get that in the shallows. We don't get that on the internet, unfortunately, right? We get that in that life that Christ wants to bring to us, that life that he calls to us. And so Jesus calls us into those deep waters. And even though those saints, I'm sure, experienced different fears throughout their life, they heard that gentle and firm voice of Jesus saying to them, put out into deep waters. Put out into deep waters for a catch. We might also be afraid of that call. We might be afraid and hesitant, just like Simon was in the gospel, and say, Master, we've worked all night and we've caught nothing. But ultimately, we make an act of faith. We make an act of faith because we know who Jesus is. We know who it is that's calling us. And so we say yes. We say, I will go forward, right? I will say yes to this call. I'll cast my net out into the deep waters. And so often the catch is abundant. The catch is abundant. So let us reject the shallowness of the world. Let us cast our nets into the deep as Jesus calls us and see what he has in store for us.